symptoms equal detoxification process. Symptoms are not bad. As much as they're uncomfortable, as much as we don't like to see them, as much as we want those symptoms to go away, that is valid and we understand that. But symptoms are not in and of themselves bad. They're a sign of detoxification trying to take place. Welcome back to the Crunchy Carnivore podcast. I am Melissa Weidenhammer, natural rearing breeder, certified canine nutritionist. I am here as always with Dr. Jessica Levy, holistic veterinarian. This is a part 2. So if you did not listen to Healing the Whole part 1, this will make a whole lot more sense if you go back and listen to that. But what we're talking about here is in the last episode, I'm going to let Dr. Levy kind of recap. In case you didn't hear it, but you want to finish listening to this episode, you can go back and listen to it later. Dr. Levy, can you kind of just recap for everybody what we really covered in Healing the Whole part 1?
We talked about some basic concepts of holistic healing. And so we talked about treating the root cause. We talked somewhat at length, I think, about what to expect as far as what symptoms mean, what symptoms indicate, what detoxification looks like, how to know where you're going with health and disease. We talked about Hering's Laws of Cure, which is a homeopathic concept that explains how you know if things are getting better or worse. Because sometimes we put a treatment in place and then our pets still have symptoms.
Right.
And it can be hard to tell, like, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? My dog had this problem, now they have that problem. And there are some very helpful resources that kind of help explain why, sometimes we get the miracle where you give the supplement or change the diet or give the homeopathic remedy and, the lights come up and there's angels singing and unicorns and rainbows. And that does happen sometimes. And, people are thrilled when that happens. I like it too. But it doesn't always happen. And so with the homeopathic philosophy, really what we're looking for is change. We're looking for a change in the patient's state. And a lot of times people are under the misconception that change is always going to be positive. That it's like if we give a remedy today, then tomorrow's going to be a little bit better, and the day after that is going to be even better. And, here we are on the way to, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And yet that's not really how your body works, right? Your body has to have enough energy to be able to gather crud up from the inside, and then it's got to get it out, it's got to dump it. And so that can look like a lot of different things, and it's helpful to understand these concepts because sometimes we need to slow down. Sometimes we need to kind of not always go full steam ahead. Sometimes we want to slow the detoxification process. And these are things that kind of can be controlled because after all, at the same time, we're trying to keep our pets comfortable. If they're not getting any sleep at night, we're probably not getting any sleep at night either. And so like all of this needs to be managed, but it's also not as bad as it sounds. Like you don't need a PhD to be able to do this. And so we covered some of those basic concepts. And so now what we're gonna do in this episode is kind of give more examples about how this stuff works in practice.
In real life, what does it look like?
Yep.
And I'm going to give a quick reminder too. I don't know if it was in the last episode or a previous one, but we really kind of pared it down to, maybe it wasn't the last episode. Yeah, it's really, when you're looking at illness and disease and dealing with those problems, it kind of comes down to either there's either a detoxification process going on or an immune system imbalance going on, or both. And so when you start to realize that it's a detoxification process, you start to look at it differently, I think. And so just kind of keep those couple of concepts in mind as we go through this. That'll also help put it, I think, in the right context. So what we want to do, we kind of decided to do this where we would give 3 scenarios, different levels of...
3 scenarios from real life.
From real life, where you've got different people coming to the table with their pets' issues, and we're going to kind of flesh it out in what does this look like in real life, in practice, in cost, because that's part of this. So we want to go over application, cost, and effort from different levels and different types of problems. So just to kind of start painting a picture of what this could actually look like. And so I think we'll start with our first kind of case or scenario, which is where we have somebody who is completely new to anything natural or holistic. They've done everything traditionally, but they're tired of not seeing results. And so they come see somebody like Dr. Levy for the first time, but they know nothing. Right? They're doing everything traditionally. For this particular instance, we're going to use a 4-year-old lab who has chronic ear infections. Okay.
Right, and this is the kind of email that I get a lot. So this is actually an email that I got a few days ago, and the email was like, my dog has had these chronic ear infections, medication, sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't, but I've decided to do things differently, and so I put my dog on a raw diet, and now he has another ear infection. And this is often perplexing to people. Like, supposedly I'm taking the first big step in a set of steps that are going to lead my dog to health, and then it happens again. And so this is pretty common because you have to remember that your body needs resources in order to detoxify. So this is it consumes a lot of nutrients. It consumes a lot of energy, and so sometimes, and this is true even for dogs who have not had any symptoms, you put them on a raw diet, and next thing you know, things start to happen.
Right.
And that is the process of their bodies saying, oh, wow, look at all these new resources that I can use. Guess what? I'm going to unload some waste products.
Yep.
And so that is typically what is happening. So some scenarios can be slow to turn around. Some animals can have a tougher time. If the disease is very severe, there's some things that are really hard to cure out there. And sometimes cure is not possible. So sometimes we're looking for stabilization of the symptoms, like maybe let's just not get worse.
Right.
But when I treat my patients, I always have cure in mind because it is possible. So with this kind of scenario, basically, what needs to happen is that the detoxification needs to be supported a little bit better. So diet is sometimes the be-all, end-all, and sometimes a little more assistance is needed to, again, manage the detoxification, maybe slow things down a little bit, keep the dog more comfortable so that you yourself don't feel like, oh, I got to do something about this, just to give, the pet owner a little peace of mind too, so that you and the dog can kind of bear the detoxification. Detoxification, a lot of times, not super fun.
And so a big concept that really it's like, and we put a lot of this on social media, symptoms equal detoxification process. Symptoms are not bad. As much as they're uncomfortable, as much as we don't like to see them, as much as we want those symptoms to go away, that is valid and we understand that. But symptoms are not in and of themselves bad. They're a sign of detoxification trying to take place. And so when you are just starting and you switch your dog to a raw diet, and then all of a sudden, maybe they never had ear infections, and all of a sudden they've got ear infections. You're like, what the heck, right? Their body's kicking stuff out. And so just that basic concept, more often than not, symptoms equal detoxification. And so we can maybe try and remove some of that negative association with the word symptoms, right? So I just wanted to interject that because I know that's a really hard one when you're coming from a more traditional headspace to really get that because they're uncomfortable. And so you're like, well, that's not good.
Right, and
but
you might
is.
Right, and you might even feel like, well, then why the heck did I do this?
Right,
if
they're just uncomfortable now, like
if they're
why
just
am I
going to
doing
have
this?
another ear infection.
Right.
Yeah, and so.
But it's part of the process,
right,
to get you to the other side.
Yes.
Them to the other side.
Yes.
So okay,
so all is not lost. So
right.
that dog basically needs some supplements to help its body bear the detox more easily and perhaps funnel the detox away from the ears into the gastrointestinal tract where things are more likely or probably supposed to happen. Okay, so literally things that I would do for a dog like that. So you have your raw diet in place. One of the things you need to do is make sure that the diet is varied. A lot of times when people just get started, they'll start with one thing, and then it's just very easy to go back to your raw food supplier and say, oh yeah, that's the one I get. That will bite you in the butt eventually. You need to have variety in the diet. The sooner the better. So basically, like, step one, get the raw diet going. Don't take too long. Like, give yourself some time. Don't take too long. Again, one of the things we learned from the Feed Real canine nutrition course, when you're about half raw and half whatever you're feeding before, you need to be done with the before, because it will start to interfere. It will start to kick up dirt that doesn't need to happen. It will start to interfere with your process.
And this is what our guide says,
right?
With how the transition process.
Yeah, and then basically, like, once you get that first protein on board and you are remembering to thaw the food out and your dog is eating it and your dog is liking it and things are going well, your next step is find something else. Introduce something else. And then step 3, find a different protein. Keep introducing proteins until you have your rotation of 5, 7, 10 different things. The variety in the diet alone will help, but you kind of have to get there. In the meantime, there's some supplements that you may want to start with if your dog has had previous detoxy things that didn't seem to resolve. I use a lot of standard process supplements because they are made with animal organs, which are immediately absorbable for dogs because that's what they're designed to eat. So for a dog like this, I would use standard process canine enteric support and standard process canine immune system support. So I would use both of those at the same time. I would probably also use a digestive enzyme. Really, for anything older than a puppy, and it's useful for puppies too, using digestive enzymes right off the bat when you're finding the raw diet is helpful, because at first their bodies are kind of like, ooh, whoa, what do I do with this? This is kind of new. And the pancreas says, like, you want me to produce what enzymes now? And so that can also ease the transition. It becomes more important for older dogs who are, 8, 9, 10 and older. But in a case like this, where there's a challenge with the immune system that shows up pretty quickly after the transition, get a digestive enzyme on board as well. And there's details in the guides, and then
there's a reason we refer to the raw feeding guide so much, because it really does, it's such a condensed and streamlined process because that's what we would tell you to start with pretty much any problem, a balanced raw diet. The guide that I made walks you through the whole thing. So literally, for a dog like this, it would be like, go get the raw feeding guide, do what it says.
Yeah.
Finish that process, get your dog on a balanced raw diet to where you feel comfortable. Maybe, if they're seeing somebody like Dr. Levy, there's going to be some supplements that are going to go along with that. But it really is very user-friendly and all-encompassing to really get you going in the right direction. It's like, okay, I can literally, once I've gone through this guide, I can check off raw diet. Like, you're doing the things that you need to be doing, because variety is built in. The transition guide to support the gut before you switch is built in. It's all in there. And so that's why we refer to it so much.
Right. And it's important as well to kind of check yourself against that information. And there are a lot of different ways to feed raw food.
There are.
Right. And so, but it's kind of like, at the same time, you want to make sure that you're doing it right, for lack of a better word to describe it. I had a client the other day who came in, and when she filled out the form, what are you feeding your dog? She said raw. And it turned out that she was cooking a little bit of meat and a lot of veggies. Right. Okay, that's not raw. It's okay. Like,
it's better than kibble.
But we can refine on that. Like, we can make it better so that you can get better results. So that is step 1. Step 2, these basic supplements. This is what I use for puppies too. Standard process canine enteric support. Enteric means intestines. That supplement fixes leaky gut. Period. It's not a digestive enzyme. It's not a probiotic, but it will make those things work better.
And leaky gut is the source for allergies.
Yeah.
For quote unquote
source
allergies.
Of a lot of problems. So it basically restores the integrity of the intestinal lining, which solves a whole lot of other problems. Every conference I go to, everything's about the microbiome. Cancer's about the microbiome. Ear infections are about the microbiome. Well, your microbiome needs a safe place to live. And that means first fix leaky gut.
Yep.
The canine immune system support from Standard Process. Again, there's a ton of immune system supplements for dogs. I like this one because it's made of animal organ extracts. So it's very easy for the dog to absorb and assimilate. It will do immune system repair. And so it's not the same as, all the dogs at class got kennel cough. I need to boost my dog's immune system. It's not like that. It is more about immune system repair. And since the immune system, most of it is living in the gastrointestinal tract, it goes hand in hand with fixing your leaky gut issues. So that is literally where I would start with a dog like this. Depending on the individual case, you could potentially find a homeopathic remedy that would match that individual. That's a little bit more nuanced and takes more time and stuff like that. So, but at least you have the basic concept when you have this issue that arises. And this is true for any similar type of issue. Your dog has had anal gland issues all along, and your friends promised you that if you just switched to a raw diet, your dog would not have anal gland problems anymore. So you switched the dog to a raw diet, but then they went to the groomer, and the groomer said the anal glands are still full. What the heck? Things take time to resolve. And sometimes you have to check your work, make sure that you've got all the pieces in place according to the raw feeding guide, and then get your supplements on board if you have not already done that.
The other big piece of this that, I mean, it's going to apply pretty much to any case, but in this one in particular is to also, you've got the raw diet needs to be in place, the supplements to help support the system in the process, and stop the chemicals in every way, shape, and form. Because what you're trying to do is to allow this animal's body to detoxify and heal, and they can't do that if you keep pouring chemicals on them, or putting them on the floor, or dumping them on their back, or injecting them with them. You can't keep putting toxins in and around them and expect them to be able to detoxify. That you're shooting yourself in the foot. So what this looks like, I mean, this is probably, I would say time-wise, this is probably all told to really like complete all these things. It's probably a 1 to 2 month process. 1 to 2 month process. And this is just
maybe 3 or 4.
Just switching over to the, getting all these things, these mechanisms in place. You're talking about at least a couple months, if not a little longer than that. So remember, we talk about you have to have patience to do this stuff. This is what we're talking about. So time-wise, 3 to 6 months. Let's just ballpark it. 3 to 6 months. It gets you on the raw diet. It gets you to understand what you can do that's not chemicals for your dog. It gets them, get those supplements in there on a consistent enough basis to support the system and actually allow them to do what they're going to do. You may see things get worse before they get better. Don't look at that as a bad thing. That's actually progress, which it's hard to understand that, but that's true. What does all this cost? That's the other thing that we really wanted to talk about. What does all this cost? We know in this day and age to do anything at a traditional vet's office, everybody braces for impact. They're like, oh my God, what's this going to cost me? Okay. It's important that we talk about the cost of this, and I want everyone to think about it in that context. When you go to a vet for a problem, a traditional vet, what's normal for you to expect? Like, you can't walk out of a traditional vet for less than $500 most of the time. 400 maybe. Like somewhere in there. That's just one time. That's not continuing medications, continuing prescription kibble, like those kinds of things. So keep that in mind as we talk about this. You are healing the dog at the root. You're heading things off at the pass. That's the whole purpose of this. So if we take into consideration food, and you've got a lab, we're probably talking, 100-pound dog?
Oh, well, lab wouldn't weigh 100 pounds.
I don't know. 95?
I don't think they should.
Well, some do that I've talked to.
Maybe 70, 80.
75? Okay, so 75, 80-pound dog, you're probably looking at about $200 a month, $250 a month to feed them raw, to feed them a fully balanced raw diet.
You have to feed them anyway.
You have to feed them anyway, whether it's prescription kibble or whatever.
Might as well feed them well.
And again, your food is going to be the more expensive of all of this. So you've got about $250 a month for the food. You've got about $150 in supplements. And when we say that, we're talking about all of them, the digestive enzyme support, the standard process, all the supplements. We're talking about $150, where you compare that to what medications cost. It's not bad. And they'll last you a while. That's the other thing.
Also, this is not a lifetime thing.
No.
Like we expect things to change as a result of treatment. So you do the food, you do the supplements.
The food will continue, obviously.
But you're not going to be on the same supplements forever.
No. So this is we're in crisis mode. We're trying to fix a problem. So we've got $250 a month for raw food. We've got $150 all told for the supplements right up front. Homeopathic remedies, there's usually one or two.
Oh, they're cheap. Yeah,
They're so cheap, which is
$10 a piece. Maybe.
Right. So it's like maybe that's $20 again. You get a ton of no-sods per vial. No-sods pellets. I say no-sods because we talk about immunization all the time. And then as far as the preventative care, your flea, tick, heartworm stuff, all those natural products are actually cheaper. That's maybe going to run you $80, and that's going to last you a few months. The tag, it lasts at least a full year. So, all told, we're maybe at like $400 or $500
to get you through,
to get you going on this process. And then once the food's underway, that's your expense is the food. And we've already talked about that in a previous episode. That's a drop in the bucket compared to everything else. When you switch over to holistic, your investment is in the food. Everything else is cheaper. Typically. So, all told, for this dog to address these problems, you're at about $500. And that's a month's worth of food and supplements that are going to last you a while. I mean, we got to keep that in perspective. So that's kind of our first scenario. This is if somebody is completely new to this, they don't have any raw food, they don't have any natural anything at home, they're starting from scratch. So that's going to be maybe a little bit more, and you're also, your time investment, you're not used to investing that much time. So it's definitely, there's a learning curve and a commitment there.
Sometimes something that I will often add on to those is chiropractic or massage. And so that's something that obviously wherever you are in the world, you would need to source locally to you. And that particularly with all sorts of problems. And there's a reason that I think we addressed in the Instagram reel.
I just did a post about it.
Yeah. About why those are helpful for dogs with allergies. And so for the ears, if you think about the nerves that go to the ears are coming out from between the cervical vertebra in this region, and then they turn around and they innervate the ears, and they innervate the ear canals, and they innervate all the little bones in there, and they help things move out through the ear canals. So if those nerves are not functioning at 100%, that's what your chiropractor and massage therapist can do for you.
And chiropractic and massage, actually, that's more of my go-to after you. Like when I have issues with my dogs, that's more of my go-to than anything else. They can help you with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're super lucky.
We are.
There's a chiropractic school in the state, and like literally half the chiropractors have trained in animal chiropractic because that's at the state next door. And here specifically, we have an excellent animal massage therapist. There's at least a couple of them. One of them was, a human massage therapist before switching to dogs and cats. And so like years of experience, so she knows what she's doing.
So yeah, find your team of naturally minded pet professionals. It's the best thing you could ever invest your time in doing, and then just follow what they say. So let's move on to our second case. We kind of have, for the second one, we have more of an intermediate, holistically minded person. This person has been feeding raw for a long time with a lot of other dogs. They're not new to natural approach. They kind of get the process of things. They're a lot more, observational and relaxed. Like they have some patience. They're kind of they're midway there. This particular dog is a 2-year-old poodle mix. This was actually another one of you've received this email. This is another real person. So a 2-year-old poodle mix. This was a dog that was rescued. And when you get a dog that's rescued, a lot has been done, and you don't know what all has been done to a rescue. And so it's just a mixed bag. You have no idea what you're dealing with when you're dealing with a rescue. But why don't you give a little insight into this one?
It can be a little bit rocky at first. Often between rescues and humane societies, they do amazing work. A lot of us have rescue dogs at home and cats. And the downside is that sometimes the animals are treated in a very assembly line kind of way, where everybody's going to get these vaccines, and then this has to be done by a certain date, and then the spay and neuter happens, and then they get, tested for her and treated for her and blah, blah, blah. Like all this stuff is going to happen on their way to getting them into a home. And yet, these animals, their immune systems might not be prepared for that kind of assault. Some are going to bear up underneath it. Some are going to suffer a little bit more. And so when you get a dog, but this could be true of a dog that you get from a breeder as well.
That's very
depending
true.
on depending upon the breeder's philosophies and what they're doing, the practices that they're using with their animals. And so you have like the advantage that it's a relatively young dog. As long as you can introduce some raw food and the dog likes it, you're better off. But it can be a little bit rocky at first while they're acclimating to your home. They're acclimating to you. They're acclimating to a new food. They just got vaccinated. Maybe they just got spayed and neutered. Like all these things are happening at the same time. And so, I got a few questions from the adopter of this little dog. And then, one day he vomited and one day he did this and then he didn't want to eat the food and blah, blah, blah. And the answer is really just take a deep breath, take it easy, calm down, let them adjust. I know we're all in a hurry, like we want our new pet to feel like one of the family and, they should just acclimate and adapt. And I will say, even with my new puppy who I got 2 months ago or something, I put him on raw food right away. He had been getting some natural stuff in his diet. But, at first he was kind of like, this food is different. He barfed one day. He wouldn't really take treats. And so, I'd give him a treat and sometimes he would take it in his mouth and kind of roll it around inside his mouth and let it fall out. But that's okay. Like he was a baby. And so I just kind of coached him along and kept kind of working at it, staying calm. And after a couple of weeks, he was right on board, got caught up. Now he's a maniac with my other dogs, just like he should be. And so same thing, that's exactly what I would expect for this little rescue dog. Just give it a few weeks. With a dog who's been through that kind of assembly line of treatment, whether from a rescue, a humane society, whatever, again, enzymes are going to be some of your best friends. Supplements to help stabilize the gastrointestinal system. With this kind of case, I would probably start supplements at a lower dose, sometimes even giving them a little bit less frequently, like once a day instead of twice a day, and just go slowly and let them adapt. It's a big change. And if you think about an older animal, like honestly, if I got adopted by a new family, I'd be a little bit traumatized.
Would really probably be very hungry.
Yeah. So might not want to sit on everybody's lap. So same thing, like just give them time, keep at it. You're not doing anything wrong. There's nothing going wrong with them, but it is a process. Those dogs are also going to need to do some detoxification. It might be later, it might not be right away, and that's okay. We don't want to push them into it because they already have enough going on.
Right.
With that scenario of being in a new family.
So in this situation, really, I mean, this owner is already used to feeding raw, so that's not a big adjustment for her. She's probably got a freezer stocked, that's not a huge adjustment. But we definitely did take that into consideration. You've got your digestive support, you've got your supplements, probably, maybe a homeopathic remedy or two. Supplements, cost of this, $80, give or take, for supplements. Raw food, we did include that because that's, food is medicine. That's also part of, taking on, maybe we want to make sure the proteins are more varied or something like that. So $100 for that. And again, this is a smaller dog too. And then for the homeopathic remedies, again, $20. So it's like you're looking at maybe $200, as far as applying these things for this particular situation. So not bad. Not bad. And it's just having that patience and realizing that there is already a tremendous amount going on, and you have to, we'll get to this in a minute, but I learned my lesson in trying to do too much too fast.
Yeah, and everything is, it's just such a process, and you do have to give it time.
So it wouldn't be too much as far as you know, mental space or time investment or anything like that with this situation. This is pretty easy to manage, but, you know, even in this situation, you kind of had to coach this person, like, slow down, like, you know, and she's done this for a long time, but it had been a long time since she had a different dog. So I think it's just all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's not just status quo anymore. So.
Well, and I kind of felt like that with Waylon. Like, I haven't had a very young puppy in almost forever, not quite forever, but almost forever. My other young dog was already 4.5 months old when I got her. And she's a totally different scenario, right? I mean, these are two very different dogs. So, you know, I also had to kind of relax about it and not freak out when he had a soft stool and the one day that he vomited and blah, blah, blah. And it all worked itself out. And now he loves treats just like a normal puppy. So.
Okay, so we'll move on to the third scenario. This is somebody who...
This is the story of Melissa's life.
This is my life for this year. So this is considered, so we wanted to take different levels of holistically minded people. So we saved mine for last because I've already done a lot. I already know a lot. There was a lot already in place. I knew about all the history. So I would be considered probably expert level holistic person. And I've had to work through a chronic issue that showed up in my girl earlier this year. So Gemma is my girl. She was 2.5 at the time. It got warmer this year, you know, the warm seasons. And, this dog is second generation naturally reared. I had her mom, I had her grandma. I know all of her history. I know the sire, her dad's history, which there was a lot of stuff that was not disclosed to me before I used that stud. That's a whole other story. And so I know everything that has been done with her, everything. This dog has had every advantage, okay, from a holistic perspective. Did you want to say something?
Like basically she's been raw fed from the get-go. Has not had any chemical exposure of any type. Her little healthy soul has been cultivated from day one, and yet detox showed up.
Yeah.
And this is what we've seen also with other people that we know who are breeding dogs naturally. It might not be the first generation, it might not be the second generation, but at some point, one or more of the puppies will start to detoxify the genetic changes or the mitochondrial changes that were put into place unknowingly earlier by the different way that the dogs were raised in past generations. And so this is kind of a generational detoxification.
And so this is where you come up with the concept of epigenetics, which is that lifestyle choices can affect genetics. And we basically coined the term, you're cleaning out the genetics. Every naturally reared generation, the further down the line you go, the more you're cleaning out the genetics. Well, it's cleaning out through Gemma is what's happening. And so basically the warm months started. She took a jaunt through our woods, came back. She kind of got some scratches on her belly, whatever. But that set off whatever this is, and she got insanely itchy inside her legs and underbelly. And so I, instituted a couple more things in the diet right away because I was like, oh, there's inflammation, right? But it wasn't helping. And so then I started down this trajectory, not realizing that I was at the beginning of a chronic issue. Like I just didn't realize that was what was happening.
And that is a really good point. So if you look at like the first scenario that we brought up, so the lab who's had some ear infections, you change the food and oh my gosh, here's another ear infection. What's going on? These things that we perceive as acute are not actually acute. This is called an acute flare-up of a chronic condition. The chronic condition is riding underneath the surface this whole time. You don't see it, you don't know what's going on, and all of a sudden something changes in the body's balance, and here those symptoms appear. And it feels acute to us because like one day the dog doesn't have an ear infection, the next day it does, but it is actually manifestation that's informing you about this underlying chronic condition.
So I want to walk everybody through this process of what I've done. So I have been at this since May of this year, May of 2025. We are in October. So we're at about 5 months that I have been actively working on this. And I'm going to just walk you through the process of what kind of things I did, and then I'm going to give you the cost. So what was it that we did? How did I apply it? And then what was the cost? This has been a challenge, but I've learned a lot, so I'm grateful. So when this first came up, and I was like, okay, this is a little more than up the omega-3s. This is a problem. I had gotten turned on to CBD Dog and MycoDog. They have a CBD that is also has turmeric in it. And a couple other things that's meant for dogs that, get seasonal allergies, have these inflammation flare-ups. So I got her on that. I also got her on a medicinal mushroom tincture because I'm like, okay, we need to do some healing here. That was what I was thinking. And I thought, maybe this is kind of what I need to do. And so I put that in place while also really upping the omega-3s in her diet. And I did about 2 months of that. And then I kind of let it finish out, and I kind of had this feeling in my gut where I'm like, I think I'm just managing this. I don't think I'm really healing anything, because it would get better, but it never fully went away. She would still, every 4 days, she'd get itchy, and she'd start scratching again, and I'm like, man, these are pretty powerful supplements. This should have knocked this out, and it wasn't. And so I'm like, I'm going to stop doing these couple of things because they are cumulative. The longer you use those kinds of things, the more benefit you see, which is why I stuck it out for a couple months. I just really wanted to see. And I was like, I want to make sure that I'm not just managing something. I want to heal whatever this is. So I stopped it after a couple of months. It raged. Whatever it was like I had put a soft blanket over it, and then all of a sudden it was worse than it had ever been when I took her off this stuff. And I was like, well, there's my answer. I didn't heal anything. I was managing this, which is really what I was kind of afraid of. And I don't want to have my dog on these supplements for the rest of her life. That's not the point. The point is I want to heal this so she can be balanced and healthy and not need all of this extra support. So that was when I finally, I talked to Dr. Levy, and I was like, okay, this is more than what it got really ugly. She got very scabby. It got very angry. And now this is kind of when it started to move. So it came back really angry in her legs, underbelly, and it moved up to her neck. She scratched her neck to scabs, and then it moved up to the side of her face, scratched her face to scabs. And that was when I was finally like, what do we do? And so at that point, we were like, okay, I said, I think this is genetic garbage that is trying to flush out of her. And so that was when I switched to the detox mindset. And I was like, okay, I think we need to detox whatever this is, and this is deep. So I texted her one night and I said, give me your top 3 biggest hitters for detox. I'm going to detox this dog. And so she did. She told me what to use, and I got all the things. Well, then I decided to double down, and I used SEACT on top of it. So we had 4 of the biggest detox heavy hitters. One was a homeopathic remedy. One was SEACT, which is phenomenal, by the way. And then we had a recipe for a beautiful coat, which is this really excellent recipe for dogs. That's like a mixture of oils. And then I think a Carna4 supplement was the other thing that we put in place. And it worked. This dog detoxed, I'll tell you that right now. And so if I thought it was bad before, then it got really bad, because it was pushing everything. I mean, she was miserable. She was literally her whole underneath was scabs. She was completely covered in scabs. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. It's, again, that was what I wanted in a way. I just didn't think about that I was just opening it like a fire hose. And I was like, let's get it all out. So I was like, okay, too much too fast. So then we course corrected again. And I also happened upon an article that was about prohistamine foods, which I had not been aware of, but I saw another gal who I followed for a long time. I love her on Instagram. I'll link the article below. But if you have a dog that is having some of these things, that sometimes it's histamine overload, it's not necessarily an allergy, and that was what she had found. But I just decided, you know what, if there's any of these foods that I'm using, I'm gonna just back off because I don't wanna be pouring more. Well, sure enough, what I was giving her morning and night were prohistamine foods, so I pulled those out. We adjusted the homeopathic remedy, kept going with a couple of the supplements, and then I introduced these allergy chews that I found through the same gal that wrote this article. She had wonderful success with them, and I trust her. She's very smart. And we kind of like revamped again, and now we're to a point where I really think, you know, we've put all those in place. I started to see huge improvement. Everything started to calm down. She wasn't scratching. And I was bathing her with natural shampoo and conditioner, antiseptic shampoo and conditioner throughout this, because I felt like she was pushing out, there was all this bacteria and all this, you know, the stuff that she was detoxing was coming out of her skin. And I'm like, it did seem to help when I would wash it off. And as normally I don't like to overbathe my dog because they have a microbiome on their skin and you don't want to mess with that. This was a different situation. It brought her some relief and it made sense to me. She's pushing stuff out, I'm going to wash it off. So that was kind of another part of what I did too.
So that's where I would point out that a lot of times with for dogs with allergies or itching or whatever, in the conventional world, shampoos are part of the treatment. And realistically, this is all coming from the microbiome. You cannot shampoo this away. It's a management tool. It's a very useful management tool. It's not useful if the dog is worse from bathing, or if it's a battle, like if your dog hates being bathed and you're gonna fight with the dog. Like in that case, just let it go unless the dog smells so bad that you can't stand to have it in your house. But it is a management tool. And so you use the management tool if it works for you and your dog.
And I remember you asked me that right away. You're like, well, is bathing helping? I'm like, yeah, it actually does, but for a little bit, but then it kind of would come back. So
I'm always impressed by, you know, when I read medical records and somebody's got like a 120-pound hairy giant dog, and the veterinary recommendations are, okay, start bathing him 3 times a week. Like, oh, you would have lost me right there. Like, no.
So all of that to say, you know, we now have her on a lower dose of a remedy that is helpful for detoxification, and we're doing it very intermittently, and I'm being very mindful that if I start to see things get too angry, it's too much, to back off. Because she's finishing this out. I'm watching it move out of her system, and I'm very encouraged with what I'm seeing. And because I know we had such a massive response to the detox, like I'm just pretty confident in that. So, you know, all told, let's just to finish this out, you know, with buying all these supplements and the remedies I already had on hand, because I have my homeopathic remedy kit. If you are going to get into this, get yourself a good homeopathic remedy kit. And you want it on hand before you have a problem. That's the other thing I'll say. But I had the remedies on hand for the most part. I had to order a couple because they were different potencies. But all told, this is 5.5 months, and I did a lot. I did a lot, and some of these would be considered expensive supplements. I didn't even break $700.
Wow.
And I did a lot, you guys. I was on it. I was doing, you know, I bought the best green lip mussel oil I could find. You know, this CBD is no joke. The medicinal mushrooms, excellent supplement. None of these are cheap supplements. So even considering that, now obviously I'm not including her diet in here. It was already in place. It's already part of our life. Like her diet is her diet. You know, I've shared it in an earlier episode. If you want to include the diet, I spend about $150 a dog on the raw diet, but that's just already in place. So I would say, you know, I am getting to the root of a chronic issue over the course of 5 months, and I didn't even break $700. I feel pretty good about that. I feel pretty good about that.
Right, but plus she'll come out the other end without problems induced by drugs, without then having to detox chemicals that have been used. And so that way it's like you avoid a whole lot of stuff on the back end.
Right.
The recipe for a beautiful coat is from a book called The Whole Pet Diet by Andi Brown. Andi Brown is the woman who developed a line of food called Halo, and I think there's a bunch of products as well. That is so useful. The only modification I make for that recipe is I don't use flaxseed if dogs have severe allergies or severe immune type symptoms. I'm still kind of debating that one in my head. It does take about 6 to 8 weeks for full effect. It is so worth it. Like now I see with my old pit bull, after he's been on it for that long, once again, he's just so much less itchy. It is basically a food source of vitamin A that you put together in your kitchen with relatively inexpensive ingredients. It's so easy to do.
It really is, and it's such a wonderful piece to have. And it covers some nutritional bases too that are a little bit harder to achieve in a raw diet. I know vitamin E is one of them. And then you have the omega-3s are high in there because you have cod liver oil. But Beautiful Coat is great. But I will say this as kind of a punchline to this. I also am fully aware that I have to get all the way to next spring and wait and see what happens.
Right, but then you have
Like,
the opportunity to change what you're doing or to implement things. I think part of the reason that you chose the CBD and the MycoDog is because you were reading Ron Silver's book at that time.
Yep.
And so, but that's part of what I love about it. Like information will kind of bubble up through the ether and kind of say, hello, here's something that would be helpful to you.
It does,
And you paid attention and you were like, oh, look at that. Okay, I'll go with that. And so, and that also kind of led to then something else catches your attention or something else looks really useful. So it's not one program. Put this in place, give your dog this drug twice a day for the rest of its life. Do not change, do not deviate. No, when you're working with living beings, things are gonna change. You need to be able to change to keep up with them. I try not to change things, I will say, like once we've got started, I try not to change things too drastically because I don't want my clients to end up with a cabinet full of supplements and they say, well, these are the things that we were using and we're no longer using. These are the things we're using now. Like that is not my goal. I don't want you to have a treasure trove of supplements, half of them you haven't touched in over a year.
I love having supplements though.
It's pretty handy.
I like it.
But at the same time, like sometimes it's just about changing the dose. Sometimes it's about changing the number of pellets of a homeopathic remedy or changing the frequency that you're giving it or give it in water instead of giving straight dry pellets. So there's a lot of play in there where you can get more mileage out of what you're already doing or just saying, maybe I'm not going to give this tomorrow like I planned.
Yep, that's kind of where I'm at.
Because you have a lot of flexibility and you need to have that kind of flexibility. So the way I think of it is if things go south or if things change in a way you don't want them to, you can always throw out your plan and implement a new plan. But because in general, this is not the same as let's try this, let's try that, right? You put a lot of research and a lot of time and thought into choosing these things. This is not the same as throwing spaghetti at the wall to see if it sticks, which, sometimes things do seem that way in conventional medicine or even in natural medicine. If you don't understand why is my vet choosing this supplement? Why is my vet recommending this remedy? Those are legit questions that you can always ask. The flip side is you do have to give things a little bit of time.
Right.
So you can't throw your plan out every other day. You will effectively kind of jumble up the mechanisms in the body that are trying to take the nutrients from what you're giving them and put them to practical use to restore the normal homeostasis of the immune system, to find a different way to get rid of waste products other than shoving out the pores of the skin as fast as possible. So all this is going on at the same time. You have to give things time. At the same time, if new information bubbles up or if you've used something for a while, you can get to the point where you're just like pushing on that detox, and it can be helpful to say, okay, you know what? Let me let that die down a little bit. Let me switch so that I'm not constantly pressing those same buttons of the immune system ad nauseum.
Yeah, and I will say this too. So for anybody that's listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, how in the world am I supposed to know this and that? And when to stop and when to start and what. This is why we encourage every single person that wants to do this approach, get your team before you need them. Find your holistic vet or your homeopathic vet. Find your natural-minded, oh, thank you, Gemma. Gemma's joining us behind our chairs. If you can find an animal massage therapist, get those people in place so that they can help you through this process. I certainly would not have been able to do everything that I am explaining to you had I not had the guidance of Dr. Levy. I don't know homeopathy like she does. I haven't seen all that she has seen. And so that was why it's like I did a few things that I thought would help because of what I know. And I knew a lot of stuff was in place already. And I was like, nope, I've hit a wall. I need help.
Right, but we also like put our heads together.
Right.
So with your experience and knowledge, and it helps that you're, an experienced raw feeder, and so like none of that had to be dealt with.
Right, but
except for the changes that you chose to make.
Mm-hmm. So I just
helpful.
don't want it to be to sound so overwhelming, like you're supposed to be able to just like know how to do all of this and figure it out yourself. Like I've worked with you for a lot of years, and I've already, and then I know my limits, and I'm like, nope, I don't even know what I'm looking at anymore. I need you to like, and two, especially with an itchy situation, it's maddening. All I hear all day long is she's scratching and she's licking and she's chewing her feet. There is such a stress factor. You get to a point where you can't think very well. And you're like, I just want it to stop. Help me. And so I did kind of hit that point too. So just know really, really get your ally in those pet professionals around you. Don't think that you need to try and figure all of this out by yourself, or that you should be able to figure it out by yourself. It can take a village sometimes. So just know that. I think, so hopefully that gives a little bit of an idea in different scenarios, what applying, these principles and concepts of healing the whole actually can look like, what it takes to do them, what it costs to do them. And again, really trying to put in perspective. It doesn't matter which path you choose, whether it's the conventional path or the holistic path. It all takes investment. It all takes effort. If you're going to go the conventional route, you're going in and out of the vet. You're paying those bills. You're using that medication. You're giving that medication once a day, twice a day, for however long. And there's effort there. There's expense there. But you're on a hamster wheel. Is the difference. And quite frankly, we've done the numbers, it gets more expensive. So, or you can choose the holistic route where you need to learn some stuff. You need to invest in some food. You need to, put in practice of feeding a balanced raw diet. You need to give those supplements. You might need to, you need to observe. Choose your hard. They're both hard. They both cost money. They both take commitment on your part. Choose your hard. One way kind of doesn't end and may lead to other problems. The other way, most likely, you're not going to be on a hamster wheel. You're actually going to be walking a path to get to a permanent solution and getting your animal to a place where either they completely resolve the issue or it's far better than when you started, and you have some management tools to make their lives more comfortable and your life as well. So there's no one and done magic pill to fix these things, and you got to choose your heart. What are you going to pick? Yeah.
I think about it like one of my patients was a golden retriever. I think he was 6 or 8 when I first saw him. 4 allergies. I remember he was on antibiotics when I first saw him. And we were able to help him feel better and help him get over the worst of his symptoms. Through the rest of his life, he was a golden retriever. And we were trying to cure him within his own lifetime. So he ended up with, in the spring, his ears would bother him a little bit. In the summer, when he was swimming, his skin would flare up a little bit. In the fall, sometimes he would chew on his tail a little bit. But overall, that client did a phenomenal job and still does with her new dog. And she had her team. It was me, a conventional vet, an acupuncturist, massage therapist, and a chiropractor. And basically, once she figured it out, and she had kind of her pattern down, that dog was kept comfortable for the rest of his life. Did he have symptoms? Yes. They were kept super minor. He did really well. He lived a long time. And so even if it's not, getting your dog to what we would consider perfect health, never having another symptom ever, but that was still a really good outcome. That's, in my mind, that's great success.
Yeah, and I mean, even if, these allergy chews that I started her on, I'm not saying it's the end all be all, but it really did seem like that was a helpful game changer for her. Even if I have to give her allergy chews every season, and she's not...
Right.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, I don't want to have to do that, but it's whatever, that's pretty minimal, compared to, allergy medication and antibiotics and all these other crazy things that I would have to have her on for the rest of her life.
And sometimes people think, well, why doesn't my dog 100% get over their allergies? Why don't these symptoms ever go away? Some of it is because we're not in control of the known universe.
Yeah.
And so we're busy keeping our lawns organic and not using chemicals in the home, but your neighbor's over there, spraying chemicals on their lawn. There's chemtrails, there's chemicals in the environment, there's chemicals in our food. There's all sorts of stuff that we are not in control of. Where we live, the cities keep, they'll spray to kill some kind of a moth or something like that. They're constantly doing these things. And we and our pets, we're gonna pay the price. But we are trying to deal with it as much as possible, knowing that we cannot completely avoid exposure to these things because there's just not enough bubble wrap in the world.
Dang it. Dang it.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Okay.
I think we're going to wrap up for today, but there you go. We're wrapping it up. Healing the Whole, that's part 1 and 2. And we hope that this all connected and made sense in a way that you can understand the principles and the concepts, what it can look like to apply this. You can kind of start mentally preparing yourself if you haven't gone this route before, what this could look like. We're here to help with all of it. We're constantly coming up with resources. We want to make it as easy for people to give their animals abundant life in their own care without having to run to a vet every other time something's going on. I think
too,
that's important.
Yeah. When I read information about raw feeding and things that people post, and they'll say something like, don't do this unless you've done a ton of research. You know what? I don't have that kind of time. And you probably don't either. I'm also I have a job that I go to, and it's not being a researcher. So this kind of thing is accessible to everyone. Sometimes the hardest piece of the puzzle is patience, and that is also what we're here to help with.
Yep. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. We will see you again next time on the Crunchy Carnivore Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Our goal is always to encourage others to seek out the holistic approach by way of education and empowerment. You can check out our online resources at wellspringhaa.com. You can follow us on our YouTube channel, Wellspring Holistic Animal Academy, and you can also find us on Instagram at wellspring_HAA. We hope that this has been helpful and that you continue with us on your journey to holistic health for your pets. As always, we're here to be unapologetically all natural.